They monitor the comments.
Live. Okay. Are you going to stand over here? Stand. Just give me a second.
Good evening and a warm welcome to a piping hot Cape Town. We clocked 39 degrees today. And for all those of you enthusiasts joining us, first we want to welcome the crowd, the old faces, and then we would like to welcome you to a brand new LiveScore group. We are home to LiveScore, LiveScore Bets and Virgin Bets, three of the most exciting brands in sports betting and gaming. Whenever it's LiveScore delivering real-time sports scores or free to-the-air live streams to the global user base. Or LiveScore Bet and Virgin Bet offering innovative and trusted sportsbook betting opportunities, we will bring our audiences closer than ever to the sports events that they love. So without further ado, I think he needs no introduction. Tug is going to be speaking about to us about Copilot and is it GitHub?
GitHub.
So please welcome him on stage.
So, one second. One second. Yeah. So tonight I will discuss about GitHub Copilot, and I will start by introduce myself. So I'm Tug. As you can guess from my accent, I'm French. I've been in South Africa for 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks now. I'm flying back tomorrow. It has been a very exciting time because it's summer here, so it's quite nice to come the hot country when it's cold at home. And you can see my sunburn. I kind of enjoy the weekend here. I am solution engineer at GitHub since for 3 years now, and my job is to help enterprise to adopt and put in place GitHub globally. It's not only GitHub Copilot. And I've been visiting many of the South African customers that we have that are currently using or will be using GitHub Copilot, GitHub Actions, and everything. If you look at my quick resume, I've been working mostly in vendors, in open source for many years, before at Oracle. So I'm coming from the Java world. This is why I've contacted the Java user group when I joined. When I knew that I was coming here, I said, let's meet the local Java community to talk about Copilot. And I've been 3 years at GitHub, but I've been using GitHub since 2010 professionally. So all the company from Exo, Couchbase, Mongo, Mappa, they are using GitHub as their main source control. As part of my activity, it's to talk about GitHub, but I am like you, I love developing, I love building software, I love learning stuff. And for this, I have a small website that I'm maintained since 2017. And this is also where I can see the value of Copilot every year for me as a developer. Every time I open VS Code, every time I open IntelliJ, it's helpful. This is what we will be talking tonight. And I will do this presentation in 2 phases. The first phase is slide, to present the architecture, to open some discussion, Q&A, then it's demonstration. What is interesting about GitHub Copilot, it's quite an old product in the Gen AI world. What I mean by that is when AI has been kind of a big splash, it's when when ChatGPT came out in November 2022, so a little more than 1 year now. But GitHub Copilot was already used by many developers since June 2021. So it's a product that has been built for 3 years for the developers, with a focus on the developers, and we are using Gen AI to help the dev. And in fact, it even have started earlier in 2020. You probably know that GitHub has been acquired by Microsoft 5 years ago, and Microsoft is very close to AI and has invested billions of dollars in OpenAI to build LLM and tools at the top of it. One of the first tools that you can see was GitHub Copilot. And in fact, if you see the date, in August 2020, some people for our research lab at GitHub asked the question, can OpenAI help the developer to build software? This is how it started. And since the product has evolved with multiple goals, increase the productivity and the happiness of the developers. It's an important part for GitHub to kind of make the developer happy. You want to give the best tools to the developers. And if they are happy, they will write better code because they will feel less frustrated. If you are frustrated, you are unhappy, you don't produce good code. And as part of that, we can talk about velocity or productivity of the developers, but the ultimate goal is to accelerate the software development, to make it faster, keeping the same quality, keeping the same security constraints or security gates that you put inside your applications. It is an important part. It's not only going faster, but it's keeping the same, even increasing the quality and the security of your code. It's a big community. We have more than 1.7 million developers. I think this number comes from November, so we have more developers today. In any type of enterprise. Small startups, freelancers, banks, insurance, gaming industry, it's everywhere. So now it's just when your company will start to use it. It's almost this. And for me, independently of Copilot, any enterprise today, in any job, but especially in IT and development, we must look at this. This is the way we are developing software today and tomorrow. I don't know how many students do you have, how many interns do you have in your team, but they are using Copilot at university today. It's part of the tools they use to learn and to develop. Is it bad, is it good? This is not a discussion. They are using it. I was at a bank this morning, and in the room you have two, two interns, and they were using Copilot because on the campus you have access to GitHub features. It's part of the tool set that you use when you learn development. The architecture of GitHub Copilot is quite simple, and I will focus on what we call Copilot for individual or Copilot for business. This is Copilot inside your IDE. And we close the discussion with something we launched yesterday that is called Copilot Enterprise. This is Copilot inside GitHub.com, inside your repositories, inside the pull requests. Here's the approach that we really focus on the Copilot you can use even if you are not using GitHub as a source code. What I just said is very important. You are on GitLab, you are on Bitbucket, you have no source code. You can use GitHub Copilot. Because GitHub Copilot is using your IDE. It's only an extension that you install in VS Code, Visual Studio, JetBrains, or Vim, that will connect to GitHub, but just to call a specific service, the GitHub Copilot service. You will use some information from your IDE, and it's a little bit of code, to send that to the model that will return you some suggestions. If you are looking at the architecture, at the security, at IP, what's happening to my code, GitHub Copilot service on the OpenAI model is executed inside GitHub Cloud. In fact, it's executed inside Azure tenant of GitHub. It's not in your tenant, it's not in OpenAI tenant, it's inside GitHub tenant. We only use the libraries on the model from OpenAI, and you are only communicating with GitHub when you are looking at GitHub Copilot. And OpenAI, GPT, GPT-3.5, GPT-5, not yet, GPT-4, has been trained on everything that is public, so we don't know exactly what their views globally. But what GitHub Copilot has done, we use GPT as a model, we do some tuning at the top of it for everything public in github.com, some optimization for programmers, for programming languages. And so everything that is public on github.com has been used to train the model. So if it's equivalent if you as a developer, you were able to read everything that is in github.com, plus all the documentation that is public on the internet, plus all training courses and so on and so on. So you have an infinite knowledge that you use to generate suggestions when you code. But having a powerful model, it's only one part of the equation. It's also very important to create a good prompt. We have probably all heard about prompt engineering. We are not prompt engineers, we are software engineers. I don't see myself as an AI specialist, far away of that. What I like is piecing code. I like to write code, I like to test something, I like to implement a feature. Focusing on the code, focusing on testing, on documentation should be easy. But behind the scene, because we are using Gen AI, you need a prompt. The responsibility of your extension in the IDE is to create this prompt for you. Based on what? Based on what we call the context. What you are doing inside the IDE, which file is open, which command, which line of code, what are you asking to Copilot. This will create a context that will be analyzed on the client side to create a prompt that has a good quality and get a suggestion. And this is always updated. We are moving to a new model when we believe it's needed. So for example, in November last year, the chat inside the IDE, the chat inside Copilot consumed by the IDE, moved to GPT 3.5 to GPT 4. The extension, we update the extension all the time. It's totally transparent for the developer. Our goal is always to measure the quality of the situation, the quality of what is accepted or not by the developers, to continue to improve this. And if we see that users are not using the product or the suggestions are not accepted, that means something is wrong in our product. We need to change the model, we need to tune something, but it's not something we ask to the developer to do. It's something that we do transparently behind the scene by updating some of these layers. Because even in the middle, when you send something, when you receive back, when we do this operation, we have some filters in the middle that just also check for quality of the code, security of the code, getting some information. It's not a security tool, it's not a quality tool, but if we recognize bad practices, we will not return the code. What is important in what I said about it's not a quality tool, it's not a security tool, please continue to use your CI, continue to write more tests, continue to put some gates on quality, continue to put some gates on scanning codes and so on. Why? Because you will write more code with Copilot. So you need to have more automation than before. The stronger is your CI, the stronger is your security, your testing, your quality gates, the better is your code in production. And it's more important when you are writing more and more code. It's what happened with new developer, it's what happened with Copilot. You will write a little bit of more code. 5%, 20%, 40%, depending on what you do at a specific moment of time. This slide, I keep it, I've not removed it from my slide, even if the blog post is from May last year. It's just to be sure, because I will share the slide with you, to remember that it's not only the model. Something happened on the client, the stuff that happened in the IDE is as important as the model. We look at open tabs by default. We look at what you have done in your IDE. And we also now have the capabilities to use at the index that you have locally on your machine in your workspace. So to look, to be able to understand based on the question you ask, to create a good prompt to send back and forth. So just remember, when you are working with Copilot, keep your IDE up to date, keep your extension up to date, because we are adding new capabilities or testing new features all the time. A very important part from a data point of view, from an IP point of view, from a security point of view. It's very interesting because with all these commands, questions, new features coming from GenAI with the LLMs, with the large model, and with the generative AI, we are kind of in a new era. We don't know exactly what's happening. We don't know what that means for the data and so on. So it's very important for people like GitHub and GitHub Copilot and Microsoft to be very clear about what do we do with which data. First of all, when we talk about Copilot and development, we talk about code. We should not talk about data. You should not put data in your source code. Don't put customer data in your source code. You can put sample data, testing data. Your production data should not be in the source code. However, it could happen. But what we do at Copilot, at GitHub with Copilot, we don't send everything you have in your IDE to GitHub. We just use a little bit of data to create a context, to create a prompt that we send to the service. We generate suggestions, we send back the suggestions that the developer accepts or not, it depends. But immediately after sending the suggestions, we remove all the context, all the suggestions. We don't keep your suggestions, we don't keep your prompt, we don't train the model on your code, we don't train the model on your prompt or suggestions. We don't do anything with what you are sending to us when you are sending back. When I say we don't do anything, I'm lying a little bit, because what we keep, we are keeping some, what we call user engagement data. Anonymous view of your user, which ID, which programming language, how many times you call the service, how many times you ask a question to the chat, but not what you are sending, what we are sending to you. It's only to measure that the fact the service is used. But we don't keep any of the prompt, any of the suggestion. We don't need that to improve the quality of the product. We don't need that to give you good suggestion. We have a specific page. So every time you are talking about the architecture in detail, you want to discuss with your architect, with your security team, with your legal team, and I will show you some of the paragraphs in this. We created this page for you. We define how the security works, what do we do with the code, what do we do with the data, and so on and so on. An interesting question about GitHub Copilot. Honestly, we have it less and less, but it was true at the beginning. Which programming language do you support? How does it work with this specific language, and so on? An easy way to answer will be GitHub Copilot knows all the programming languages. But you will know better if the language has a good representation, public representation on GitHub.com, the better will be the suggestion. So if you are doing some of the top languages we had in 22, 23, or 21, 22, like Java, JavaScript, Python, C#, Shell, Markdown, HTML, CSS, and so on and so on, the suggestions will be very good. It's same with kind of the very growing language like HashiCorp, Rust, Go, and so on. Good suggestion. If you are developing in COBOL, if you are developing in Fortran, or even Elixir, that is a new language, but not in the biggest community, the suggestion will not be as good. That doesn't mean you will not work. That means you will not be able to help the developer at the same level. So usually the good answer for that, all languages, better representation, better suggestion, but in the same time, you should always test to see how it could help. Because we will see in the demonstration, you have a different behavior when you start from an empty file or when you start to have multiple files. Because when you have multiple files, there's multiple lines of code in your file, the context has changed. We have a better understanding of what you as a developer want to do. So this one I will go back to the platform at the end. Do you have any questions? Online, if you have questions, yeah?
You said you wrote you said you don't take it. What do you use to train?
So the question is, I said that we don't keep the questions, we don't keep the answers. What do we use to train the model? First, if we only use your question and your response, the model will not be smart. If we use only your question and the response we give you, the model will not be very smart, because your code base is very small. Okay, it's a joke, it's a sound that the reality is, it's very hard to make joke in English form, but I'm still trying. If we look here, OpenAI, the model from OpenAI, GPT, has been trained of billions of content from the internet. Plus everything that is public on GitHub.com. Every open source that you have on GitHub has been used to train the model. So we don't need your code to improve the model. We may need to have a better knowledge of what you do to provide a better suggestion. And this is what we do with the prompt. We try to use your code locally to understand what you are doing, understand how you are coding, to make sure that when we are solving a question and we are responding, it's close to your way of coding. Other question?
So if you have a situation where you'd like more accurate answers, then you want to open the relevant files in your IDE first, and that will increase the context accuracy that gets represented or sent as part of your prompting generator that you have made in the prompts, right?
Yes, so to improve the context, to give more context, we can use the open tags.
Yeah.
But it already has changed. You will see in the demonstration, we are adding more features to do that. So, online, more questions? Steve?
No questions at the moment.
Okay.
Just ask them to post the questions.
So, let's start just a little bit with the trust center. You will see how it's organized. If you want to know how we deal with securities, what do we store, what is something back and forth, we have some documentation. I like this one also. Just this one. First of all, we don't do copy and paste. Never. It's always, you have some context, we create a prompt, we are sending the prompt, we generate a response, we send new suggestions. All the time, it's a new suggestion. Okay? So sometimes you may have asking twice the same questions and have two different codes received. Sometimes you may have used the same code, but it's just because the model has generated different answers or same answers depending on what the model or what the context believes is a good answer. Also, this one is interesting. It's the fact that we have a protection when you work with GitHub Copilot for business. If you look at your profile, so if I look to my profile on GitHub and I go to my Copilot, here, you can do the same if you have access to Copilot or if you don't have, but you will see that I have access to Copilot. And my access to Copilot is provided by my enterprise, by GitHub. My employer is giving me access to Copilot, and I cannot configure anything. This is one of the features when you work with Copilot for business. You have access to the tool, the access to the tool, so it's provided by the enterprise, and the policies, and the configuration is managed by the administrator of the enterprise. One of them, an important feature, is to enable or not the data feature, but one of them is using suggestion-based code. When you write some code yourself, let's open a new JavaScript file, where I want to open a directory, count the number of lines of all the files in this directory. Probably, the way you will write the code, somebody else has done the same thing the same way. Probably, right? If you are not so unique that you will involve something completely different. So sometimes when we are writing code, we use the same code that somebody has done. What we have done at Copilot, because we can use the same symptom or the same effect, that when the model is used to generate a suggestion, sometimes these suggestions could be the same as something that exists somewhere else in GitHub. What we do is, if we generate a suggestion that is more or less 150 characters or plus was 150 characters, we compare with everything that is public, and if it's the same, we don't return it. It's a little bit extreme because we don't look at the license, we don't look at the type of programming language, but it's a very good security for IP protection, for license kind of stuff. If we are worried that we will have some codes coming from another repository. So we do that exactly for discussion with the legal department about what I risk if I use Copilot. So from a code point of view, integrating your code, first of all, every suggestion is your code. It will not be the same that something exists somewhere else in the public repository. And because of this, don't worry, you will not do anything with your code. Because you can be afraid of, if I take some code from somewhere else and I put that in my application, it's a risk. No, it will not happen. It's probably happening more today because you will copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Except if you are very unique and very good, you never use Stack Overflow. But I do use Stack Overflow before Copilot. So, and the other part, people could be afraid that we use your code to train or somebody can steal your code in GitHub. No, we delete everything. It's a kind of almost a stateless stuff. We send, analyze in memory, generated suggestion in memory, send it back, delete. So let's go to the demonstration.
Before you start that, do you think that Copilot is going to replace Stack Overflow as a helper?
So the question is, do I think Stack Overflow, Copilot or equivalent tool, because will replace Stack Overflow? Yes, not completely, but it's already. If you talk to everybody that has been using Copilot for a few weeks, few months, for me it's 2.5 years. Yes, I don't go to Stack Overflow. I go to a lot less to Stack Overflow than before, for sure. You still need sometimes some help in Stack Overflow, to get more understanding. You can ask Copilot to give you some explanation about the code and so on. But sometimes, the same way you will still need the documentation, right? So Stack Overflow still is a big knowledge. What will be interesting is to see how it evolves and what Stack Overflow will do with AI. This is a different discussion. But yes, you will see a big crash in terms of the usage of Stack Overflow.
Does GitHub scrape Stack Overflow currently?
OpenAI does, yes. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't have the proof, I don't know, but yes. It's a source of knowledge that is interesting, so I doubt that it will not. Maybe it does not, but I don't see it. We don't know. We don't have a clear vision about what Gemini, what GPT, what all these tools are using to scrape.
And if it's scraping, I presume it's only the answers.
It's public access. Yeah, public access. So the best way to start a copilot. Who has played with copilot? Nobody? Okay, good. But good. It's a shame.
It's online.
Yeah. But one way of starting to show how to use copilot is, first of all, you need to be connected at GitHub. You need a GitHub account, but you don't need your source code to be inside GitHub. If you look at this VS Code, if I do git status, this project is not in a source control. So if your source code, if you are not in a source control, if you are using another product, if you are using GitHub, it will work the same way. And what I have is I have installed the extension. In VS Code, same in JetBrains. You see I have the JetBrains extension here. And I am connected to GitHub, but just to call the API. And the first thing that Copilot will do for you is completion. It will help you to write anything. If I start with a JavaScript file, if I say capetown.js, I will just start on this is how, when you work with Copilot, you will change a little bit your way of coding. It's not a revolution in the sense you will completely burn your brain and you have to change everything, no. But for example, now I start to describe with a small command what I want to do. I will say, I want to import Express, create app, use default port, and sometime I wait because I know that Copilot will complete the code. And very quickly, you know what Copilot will guess from your context, for example, or use environment variable. Because you know that in this context, it will know that what I want, it's use a default port. Then, here, what I have done by doing that, it's some kind of prompt engineering. I am inside a JS file, and I put some context to say, this is what I want. I do return, now it started to suggest code. Sometimes it will suggest one line, and I do tab, one line, tab, one line, tab. So nothing special. But you see, it's still understanding what I want to do. I want to create an Express application, so I want to use a default port that is 3000. Why 3000? It's because most of the Node.js application will be 3000, but if I want to change it, obviously I can do this. It will adapt automatically, right? And if I continue to code, it will suggest in this context something. And this is an important part about Copilot. Copilot using your context will always try to suggest something. Here I have started my kind of boilerplate for my project. What's the next step for when I have done that? Technically, it could be importing some path, importing some database access, creating static files, depending on what you do. If I go to another application, and I do exactly the same, if I do return, based on this context, because of what it's above, you will say, oh, I need an API. Probably you are looking for an API, look for the owner. If it's the case, you just accept. If not, you continue to code. And this kind of magic, it's almost when you work like that, sometimes you have the feeling that Copilot is reading your brain, because in your brain, you know that you want to do insert, update, delete, and you have the list after. And you will know that you want the list based on what you have done before. So either you use a command, you can be very precise in the command. For example, create a route to say hello to name, or default it to Cape Town. Enter, it generates some code. If I continue to work, it will guest start the server, good idea, done. Same if you are working with function name. If I do functions get prime numbers, what I do quite often when I know that I want a function and I want the code of the function, I will quickly do bracket bracket. Up, enter, it will generate the piece of code. It's one piece of code. It's not the piece of code. It's not necessarily the best piece of code. It's not necessarily the safest type of code. It's a code that it's suggested for you as a developer, and this is where you have to use your brain. Remember, you are a developer. It's called copilot. This is a very, very important part, and especially if we are working with junior developer, we should not say don't give the tool to juniors. We should just educate. We should explain, and depending on how lazy you are. Also, I'm a very lazy person, so sometimes I accept without reading. But don't do that, because when you work with Stack Overflow, if you copy and paste the source code, most of the time it will not work. You have at least to change the variables. You have at least to change some stuff. This, most of the time, it will work for this simple kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean it's the best business logic. It doesn't mean it's safest or quality that you get. For this simple code, not too risky. But imagine in the context of your application, you have to read, you have to understand. And remember, your code review process, your CI is very, very, very important. Especially when you have newbies or new technologies that you put in place, it's an opportunity to make sure that the code is correct. Suppose you want to look at different implementation of that. You have some shortcuts where instead of accepting the suggestion, I can get 10 suggestions. It will give me 10 to 9 because one of them has been filtered by the duplicate filter. It's a good idea to do that when you are looking for inspiration. The first one, it's not the best one. The best one will be the one you select, based on your experience as a developer, which one do you want. The best one, it's not necessarily the one that have less line of code or more line of code. It's just based on your logic, based on what you want, what do you want to implement. For example, if you know that you have a specific libraries you want to use, if you have a specific algorithm you want to use, you can be more specific. I will say use a specific algorithm that is used for prime numbers. I do the same call. Now the first one, based on this context, will be an implementation of this specific algorithm. So I can accept the code like that. So we have seen two ways of suggesting code. Completions, get the suggestion. But you can also use the chat window to do that. So you go to the chat here. Oh, I will start again. So I just click on the chat on the side. In Visual Studio, it's probably the same. In IntelliJ, it's here. So yeah, I will not zoom too much. Zoom here. So you have the window here. So getting the suggestions or getting the chat. So if I go back to the chat here you can ask really a question. It's really the same experience as ChatGPT, except you are in your IDE, meaning you have all the context of what you are doing. You don't need to do copy and paste. You are in a secure and a safe space with GitHub. You are not communicating with OpenAI. And what I do here, you see we have some commands here, /test, /fix, /explain. In fact, every time you install a new release of the extension, when you want to start, you have three shortcuts, three tools you have to remember. /command. /command, it's this one if you want to search, if you want to explain, fix, new, test, so on and so on. You have the @ command. The @ command in VS Code or Visual Studio, it's not yet available inside JetBrains. It will look at what you say. Terminal, in the terminal here, or workspace, look at all the files that I have in my workplace to create the context. So to your comment about the different tabs will be by default on the only way by when you write a code. When you chat, now you have a better control of what you want to use. And so we have seen, so in this workspace, I want to, I will do the real use case. I will say in the workspace, create a test for the get prime number located in, I can do dash, and same here I have some shortcuts, for example, for the file captain.js. And you see here, the first thing it's doing, it's indexing and looking locally to create a context, to create a prompt. This is the at workspace has been delivered in November. The dash file has been delivered a month ago, early February. Yeah, less than a month. So we are always improving this. And it has nothing to do with the model. It's really on the client side how we can create the prompt. And you see, it explains that I use the cp.js, the rules txt, because in the rule txt I put some rules when you use JavaScript, user arrow notations and so on. So because I put this rule, you see the test was created with the arrow notation here. And he used a package.json, and I didn't use expect as a stuff. So it's giving me what I can do. And what is fun, I think it's fun, but I don't need much to be amazed. When you have a command like that, so when you have this kind of stuff, you can either copy the content here or create a new file. When you have a command line like that, you can directly push it to the terminal, run that into the terminal. Yes?
So we have some questions online. First one is for support kind of question. I don't know how much time we have. It's saying he's having issues signing in on the copilot chat since the currently it's saying that it ends kind of tries to.
Gen 9 or from VS Code?
Sorry?
Gen 9 or VS Code? IntelliJ or VS Code?
Okay, then the other one is saying, is there a way to incorporate coding standards we have in place for our development work, or does the suggestions only come from best practices?
So on the first question on the chat, it's probably an issue either with the JetBrains extension that is still in beta, if it's in JetBrains Intelligent. If it's on VS Code, I will be surprised that you have issues, but let's say it's a small issue, and I don't think I can help. If really the issue continues, it should drop me anyway. On the other question about the coding standard, by default, Copilot, if you have no context, will use the most common way of coding. If you have coding standards, if you are very strict in your coding standard, meaning you use a linter, you use a check style or code style, pre-tire formatting and all this, that means all your code is formatted the same way. By default, Copilot will format the code the same way. He doesn't know about the formatting rules, but he will code the same way. The way I like to do it is this way. You see my function, use the keyword get prime number, use function. So this is the way I code my function so far. If I say add new functions for additions, subtraction, this is not what I want to do. This is because of the root that is lost. I will try this way. Up. It's a good example where, so the reason why, so I'm failing in my demonstration. It's not a big deal, but this is a good example of where you have to be careful. Here, my goal is to show you something, so I will try to ask multiple times and so on. If Copilot doesn't do what you expect, and you have tried 1, 2, 3 times to change the prompt, remember that you know how to code. Remember that when Copilot is not here, you know how to code. So in this case, what I can do, but this is not what I want, is I will show you, I will do this. You see, I'm just telling him now, write the function. Please write the function. And now he will know on the flow that what I want is to write the function. So you see, it's creating with the function key name, but what I want it to do is this. I will come back to what I just did. Come on, it's too slow. Okay. Let's see if it's smarter here. No, it's not. So, if I redo the example, you will see that it will copy my way of generating the code. So, today, the short answer is it doesn't know about your coding standard. But if you give enough context, it will. And one of the ways you can give context is you create a file in your project and you give some basic rules. And when you code, you will use it. It's not a perfect science, but in the same time, I will repeat that again, you have a linter, you have a checkstime, you have a preparer. So at the end, even if the code that has been generated is not exactly the same as what you want, because you have this tool, it will be reformatted, it will be controlled by your API. So you can use Copilot to do many things. What I will show you some examples that I used before going to a more real-life use case. Is the other day I have a customer that asked me, we need to onboard 5,000 developers on Copilot. And this we need to create teams, so organization stuff, and put the developer in the teams. Can we do that with a CSV file? We don't have we have tools to import Copilot user, but we don't have the tools to import Copilot user in a specific team inside an organization, just internal stuff of GitHub. But we have many API. So I started to create a script, a shell script with GitHub Copilot. I describe what I want to do at the top. I describe the parameters that I want to use. And what was funny is this, right? If you start to code this way, he's doing more than what I want. Come on. So you see, it's coding for me line by line. This is how I code this stuff. I didn't ask to generate the full file. And at the end, for example, when I say check if the teams already exist, it's calling the API behind the scene and so on. So this type of stuff, for me, if I don't have Copilot, I will take maybe 25 minutes to write a script. I have Copilot, it took me 5 minutes. And is it the perfect script? No, but I am not a system engineer. I need this script for a one-shot, so it's perfect. So you have a different approach in the way you work, right? And I do the same with Python. And the funny part with Python, I am not a Python developer. I almost never use Python, but I use it more and more because of Copilot. Because when you describe well your problem, the pseudocode that is generated is very close to the Python code. The pseudocode of Java has nothing to do with the pseudocode of your function. You have so many stuff around it. So my need was, I need to go, it's for my, so my personal application is it's a windsurfing application, and inside it I have a catalog of boards, sails, and all the stuff. And this catalog today, all the images, they don't have the same size. I am moving to React. I'm rewriting in Java 21 Quarkus on React, where this one is Node.js, Mongo, and Bootstrap. I have no smart stuff on jQuery on the client. Now I have to have cleaner image to be able to use them properly inside React. So I needed a way to quickly resize all the images, make them square, add transparency around it. And I just say, let's try with Python. So by using this kind of parameters, it was very easy. I was able to write the script in one shot. Suppose now I keep it in Python for now. But if I want to do it in another programming language, I will do this. I will go to the chat. I will open here. Yes. So I say, convert this Python code to TypeScript. And I don't even ask a very smart question. I just say, forward, convert this code to TS. Ideally, if you know exactly which version with stuff you want to use, you will say, convert it to Java 21, use this image library from blah, blah, blah. But here I'm just saying, come on. He has a hard time to work. So this is a guy on the phone that wish me bad luck. Because he has issue with the chat, I have issue with the chat. Let's see what's happening. Why it doesn't work? Thinking, I will let it work a little bit. So, well, this approach about converting languages, learning about languages, is very, very interesting. At the beginning, I was a little bit skeptical, to be honest. I said, oh, no, but I will never use that. In reality, I use that a lot. You use a lot when you have to understand something, when you have to convert. It's not a migration tool, but it's a very good learning tool. Because, for example, here, he explained me that so this one I know, this one I know, this one I know, but I never used sharp before. So I can ask the question. So it's giving some code, and if you look at the code, it's really close to what we have in Python. And I can ask, so I can ask more questions. So we have this kind of conversation about what you are doing. So in reality, you can really use that to learn new programming languages. You have a question? So
I have a question that I don't know, maybe if you can I'd like to see more how you can use it for debug.
I don't need to debug, I never create a debug. So I don't know how to debug. No, we should. So debugging, Copilot will not necessarily find the bug, okay? If Copilot can find the bug, it's so obvious that you can find it. Because Copilot just understands the code, it's not a compiler, it does not execute the test, and so on. But if you have a behavior, and I will give you two examples where we have some bugs, and we can debug it. So one of them is, in real life, I don't use, I use IntelliJ for every Java development, but because the Copilot extension is a lot more powerful inside VS Code, I use both of them, especially when I want to do this kind of feature. So here, I have a simple Spring application. It's Pet Clinic, you know Pet Clinic, and my CI raised a bug. Not really a bug, but a vulnerability. So inside GitHub, we have some tools to scan for security, for some SAS, some static analysis tool. Here I have a risk of SQL injection. We have some explanation about what is the recommendation, but I am lazy. I will go here. I know that I have to fix this bug. So I will go to the chat, and I will say, For the purpose of the demonstration, I'm being very vague. In reality, you should be more precise as possible. So if you know the behavior, and I will show you an example where I have a behavior. You see, I have, what is the problem with this code? It's explaining it's a risk of SQL injections. It's explaining that the risk is to have a drop table inside the stuff. So for many of the security or basic bug, you will be able to do that. You will be able to, when you have the fix, so if this fix is good with a placeholder like that, you can apply it. So I apply with this small click. If you look at the code, you are not very happy, you do right click, start inline chat, add javadoc, because since I'm touching to the bug, I want to fix the bug. Javadoc to the method, add try, catch, block. If you have a specific logger, either it will guess, or you can say use this specific logger. So I have asked a question about the code. It could be explained. In this case, I know that I have a problem. So explain the problem. Give me a suggestion. I apply the suggestion. I ask copilot to write javadoc, do a try catch block, command the code. Done. The next step is to write a test. So I like to do it. You are not.
I think I was also interested in when you get here and terminal, like because I saw something that.
Yeah. I will come to that in a moment. So the key is to see this big flow, because what we have when you work with Copilot, it's very important to understand you have this completion, you have the chat, you have the inline chat that I showed you. You know that. All this will allow you to do many things. And for example, if it doesn't help you to debug, you have so many things you can do on the side for your same project at a specific moment. It will still help you. The two big part people are immediately getting gain: documentation and test. Test is one click. Test is one click plus a small phrase. You do test, you do TDD, it's done. Really. So I don't have the exceptions, but I will show you the equivalent of what we have in a terminal in another example, where I really fix a bug in this case. I will cheat a little bit, so please don't look at what I'm doing, okay? Okay, so this is a real, it's funny you asked that, and I have to add that to my demo in a better way, but somebody asked me, I was discussing with a customer that they are doing Kubernetes, and they want to automate some part of the stuff with Python API for Kubernetes. So this code is just a client code from Python calling Kubernetes to get some secrets. You see the namespace secret, line 25 to 37. When they run this code, they had an exception. I cannot run the code, I don't have the API, I don't have the Kubernetes. But what happened, so if you see the exception, you can, from the terminal, you can get the exception. But what happened is, they said, the question was, using the file that I am on it, when I run this code, I have the exception. So I put the exception, right? This is the message that you will have in the log file, you will have in the stuff. So when I run this code, that is located in this Python file. I got this exception. Tell me more about it. What is it? How to fix it? Not cannot modify. So I am explaining exactly my context, right? It's my Python API calling a Kubernetes cluster, but I cannot modify the Kubernetes cluster configuration. So you will look at analyzing the content and get some information about the file. So it's starting on this. What you are mentioning while it's doing that in the other part is when you are in the terminal here, and when you have Visual Studio, it's not yet implemented in IntelliJ. Every time you will have a terminal execution, it's okay. You see here you have the small sparkles. This allows you to say, okay, let's explain with Copilot. So this is also when you have a bug, when you have something, it will raise that and it will start the terminal in this context. So hopefully you will have, yeah, good. The specific API is perspective, this one. So you should replace with something. So it's allowing you, if you read in detail, it asks you to call a different API with a different parameter to find a secret in a service account. It's what's supposed to do. So it's giving you a different error, a fix to this. This is another option. You can have the discussion. So the way we will analyze bug, fix bug, is by asking the question inside the chat.
It's Swagger. Yeah, Swagger documentation.
You can generate Swagger documentation, but if you need a Copilot to generate Swagger documentation, you don't have the framework. You know what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
Because new tools, they do it automatically now. Quarkus, Spring, and all, they have tools. But anyway, look at it. I will show you that. So, independently, so the question from Steve was, can Copilot help me to generate Swagger? Yes. As a joke, I said that if you need Copilot to generate Swagger, you don't use a good tool. In the sense that most of the new frameworks have enough information to generate Swagger on the fly, or the opposite, generate some stuff on the fly. How I will do it? I will go inside my API, for example. I go to so this API. So you see this API has multiple Spring Boot signature. I will select this file. I will do a new chat using the file API controller. Create a Swagger file. As simple as this. And I hope it will work.
Me too.
Yeah, it's done. It's okay. So, if you want to do something more generic, come on. It's very slow, it's very slow. I want to show you something interesting about how you can get some information. So I am in IntelliJ. I'm just doing for the Swagger demonstration because I want to show the at workspaces. I will do something like that. So I will do up. I am in a Quarkus Java 21 application here. It's taking some time to start. Okay, done. So I am doing the ad workspace. So typically in Quarkus you don't need to do that because Quarkus has an API framework where we will generate a Swagger for you at runtime. But in this case I'm asking in this context, without opening any file, I'm just saying I know that I have a board API. Use that and look at further information and it should create the Swagger. Sometimes we have some behavior when he believes that it's smarter, instead of generating the Swagger, to simply call a command line. In .NET you have some, I don't remember because it's only, but you will, to call this command, you will generate the Swagger for you. In this case, it's doing the root Swagger. And another approach about helping you to code. So, my application, so I will stay in IntelliJ. My product catalog, I'm just at the beginning, has a board with some annotation, so JPA annotation, and with board specification. So a board has a brand, a year, and you have this multiple size. So one board, multiple specification, like a T-shirt with multiple size. Suppose if you look at this, you will have board, cells, fins, foil, mask, and many different products. What I will do this. Right-click, create a copilot reference in the chat. You see it's here. And I will say, propose an implementation for sales mapping the board one. The cell specification should have the field size, mast, boom, convert, and button. So I'm just describing, I know that I have to do that. If I code it, I will have to code it manually, step by step. I'm just asking Copilot to do it for me. But I am giving enough context by giving a service that is the equivalent. So we create and propose an entity for the sale, the entity for the sale specification, expose the service, and so on. And is it correct or not? Sale specification, slug, LWA, not bad. So sales, many spec, one too many for the spec and so on. But it's mapping what you have in the board, so I just have to add all the packages. So some people don't like that. I personally don't like it. I don't start with it. What I don't do is I have coded manually the first one. And I use the second one as an inspiration using Copilot. Some people will say create everything. It's really depending on how much time you want to read, you want to test. And you can then use many things. You can use a SQL statement, you can use Kubernetes. You have no limit in the way. Something that I like to show about the no limit is totally stupid, but it's just to the mindset. I will show you. So you see this CSV file. Suppose you know it's a small data set for testing. Suppose you want to remove the first column. What do you do? How do you do it today? You open it in Excel, you remove it, you try to find a regular expression, you remove it. What I do, is just select the code, Copilot, start inline chat, and I ask Copilot to do it. It has nothing to do with coding, right? It's just the fact that because it's smart enough to understand, and you can do
It generates the test data.
but they are tests. Yeah, you can. So for example, add 10 more data. And now I can also say, I will say it here. For example, I will say, so I do the opposite. I'm saying from the CSV, create a table, and then put the data in the insert. So you have many, many things when you have Copilot where the productivity is not only in the code. If, for example, you can ask to, at workspace, create the README file, or I do something like that, is my technical email, I use Copilot, and it didn't work. Good. Trust me. Because at the end you just get used to it. It's a very, very powerful. How much time do we have? Because I can speak all night, so I don't want to. Let's take some questions. Let's get interactive now.
You mentioned that first difference between business now and business account or like.
Copilot is part, yeah. Okay, we do that. We take 5 minutes at the end for this. Other question, Bob?
So how far away from replacing developers entirely by simply producing business that like
I am not afraid of that. I don't think we will replace developer. I'm working for GitHub. GitHub job is to provide tools for developers. So our goal is not that hard. Par contre, sorry, English is better. Yeah, you understand. When I'm starting to be tired, I would say French or English. The goal is not to replace the developer, but the developers that don't know how to use this kind of tool will probably be at risk for some entities. Because what will happen, suppose Steve and I we are working in the same team. Steve knows how to use Copilot. I refuse to use Copilot. For whatever reason, I am so expert. He will come faster than I do. For the same job, he will do it faster. So at the end, I may be at risk not because I am not a good developer, but just because he's developing faster than me with the same quality, with the same security. So the risk is more on this side. And the very bad developers that don't write correct code, yes, they are at risk in the sense that they may move to something that is local if they don't try to learn how to code better in terms of quality and security. Because if you have a very dirty developer on your team that use Copilot, accept the suggestion, use Copilot, accept the suggestion, without reading, without thinking, if you are in a proper organization, this code will go into pull request. Somebody will review the code. So Steve will review my code. We do the opposite. I am the lazy guy using Copilot with stupidity. He will spend a lot of time reviewing my code. And because I'm using Copilot, I use a lot of code. We are wasting the time of two people. So we have to be careful about that. But the goal is not, and it's far, far away. You see all the questions that I've asked. And also, we love building software. And building software is not writing code like that, right? Building software is thinking about the architecture, the plumbing, defining how you will define your code, how you will design the data for an optimization, and you still need the brain of a human for that. But when you know how to write the SQL statement, you know what to do. It's good if Copilot can help you. And for the test and for all this like that, you can focus really on the algorithm.
Then just out of interest, how does it going to affect things like interviews? Because we have certain interviews, like job interviews, because we have certain companies that will give you a text pad to write code there. So now we are used to working with Copilot. Now how will it affect?
So sometimes I use this kind of presentation to university or to engineering school. And I finish with this statement and you will answer it. You are a student, you have access for Copilot for free with Copilot Academy. So I watch the teacher and I said to the teacher, you have to review all your exercises, all your labs. They are done. Because you take the labs from any interview process, you copy and paste in Copilot chat, you have the answer. So you have to review the process of your job when you do the job interview. But the reality is they use Copilot, they have an answer. What you should ask is, can you explain me the code? The important part, it's now, I think, the important, we are not, most of us, we are not sending a rocket to the moon, right? We are doing data analysis, data processing, request response, and all this. For this, you need to have a good brain, but you don't need to be a Einstein, okay? So the key part is when you accept Copilot, when you work with Copilot, when you interview, first of all, you should probably congratulate the developers that will use Copilot, or any other tool but Copilot. But you ask the question, okay, can you explain the code? Do you understand what you are doing? And if he is, do you understand?
You know, you can ask Copilot to
No,
because each line of code.
Yeah, but
it will explain each line of code.
Yeah, so you have two parts on that. If he has done that, so you know, I ask a question, you ask me a question, I do that in my office. I ask a question to Copilot, I have the answer, I take the code. I go to the interview, I don't have Copilot. I can say I use Copilot. He asks the question, I have to explain the code. If at home I have asked the questions, get the code, explain the code, understand the code, when I go to the interview, I can explain the code. It's the most important part. The good part in this case is I use the explain function, so I understand that the code that I took is my code. I understand. I'm not too worried. But yes, we have to change for the interview. We have a customer that is named Doctory. It's a big, Doctory didn't exist maybe when we were in France. It's a big platform for doctors and patients to when you take you want to see the doctor also. When part of the evaluation of Copilot for the developers, they asked Copilot to pass all the tests. It was 97% successful. So yes, your interview process will change. Okay. So everything that I showed, no dependency on GitHub except an account. And you have many other things. So what I like to do with Copilot is, if you have Copilot, if you start to use it, what we can do, a few weeks from now, we can have a Q&A session for the people. You can drop me an email or so. I like to do that, to have the feedback. Because you won't remember what I have shown, or you may have some surprise saying, okay, I believe that I could debug with Copilot and I don't understand how to do it, and you can discuss that. What we have announced yesterday is Copilot Enterprise. This one to be able to use this, you must have your source code in github.com. You must be a customer of GitHub with GitHub Cloud. And the idea of this is, for example, you go to a pull request. I will start with a pull request. It's not a good one, sorry. So, if you look in, we have a copilot logo now here. This button will look at what you have done in the pull request, or what you have done in the different commits that you are working on. And it will generate the first part of your pull request. So a long description of what you have changed. So when you create the pull request, you can use this, or just before the review, when you have no clue what's happening, you can just click on this button, and you will generate and document what has changed. I have multiple commits. One of them is I changed the CI/CD process for checking my dependencies. The other one, I have added new dependencies. I created a new API. I created another API. And you see you have two different commits for this. Then I modify some data. So we have an explanation about it. The other part is we want to customize the experience of GitHub based on your source code. We don't need, again, to train on your source code. We have a first step. If you are familiar with AI and GenAI, you may have heard about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Have you heard about this? You will understand when I will show. Is when you have access to GitHub Copilot Enterprise, you take a repository. You can ask Copilot. You see, you have a Copilot logo here, and you can ask Copilot to index. So you will generate an index, a vector database, stored inside GitHub.com on your private repository. So nobody else, except your employees, your team will be able to use this. When you click this, it's indexing the source code, the source code. Like that, after that, you can work on your repo and ask specific questions. So it will use a mix of the knowledge, the global knowledge of GitHub Copilot on OpenAI, but also it will use the index. So it's not a good idea, so I should use a specific file in this case. I didn't find it. In that clinic. So I will define more information. So you have all this interaction you can have to the chat. You can also make reference to all your documentation. So if you put your documentation inside GitHub as Markdown, you will have access to all the docs that you have and use that as a source for interaction. And this first part is mostly on GitHub.com, but we will also be able to use this index of the interaction with your repositories, with your API, directly in the IDE inside the VS Code engine. So it's using more and more AI capabilities inside your GitHub.com on your own source code. Yeah, okay.
All right. Thanks, Jack, for the presentation. It was really, what can I say, convincing. Because I think I was one of the people who was against copilot. But I think I like the perspective of saying it's more of there's got a mirror effect to step from. And I think all of us, we as developers, will step over for ideas when you get stuck. So now you have those suggestions or ideas in your IDE, so which will increase your productivity. So thank you so much. And also thank you to the Live School Group for hosting us tonight, for giving us the venue and also the treats that we have. I think the event was quite of short notice, not my fault. I think he thought maybe he was going to use copilot to inform us about his business. But, yeah. So I think next time I would have a good lens to advertise and promote the event. But also thank you guys for making time to be here as well. And those who are online as well, thank you guys for joining in. So yeah, I'll just let you guys know for the next events. We normally hold at least one event a month, either online or in person. So thank you guys for attending, and thank you again to your team for having us here. Thank you.
Nice. Like it. Thank you so much.
How do you know?